All right, good evening, everybody. Hello. This is your Friday night MGTOW musings of the madman. I'm just going to pause this music briefly and just see how my microphone is. Yeah, a second now. Yeah, let's see how that was. What I'll have to do is I'll have to go back onto the actual video itself, and then I can verify if I'm hearing anything back. I do apologize, gents. Anyway, I hope you're all well, and I really hope this is recording, but we'll see what happens. All right. Yeah. You see, I've got an awful lot of tabs open on my laptop, so that's probably why it's causing me a bit of bother. But I'm hoping we're okay. I'll have to just get up the video itself now and make sure we're all good. So I apologize for the delay here briefly. I've got a couple of articles prepared. I had a bit of a nostalgic day today. I went back to visit my old school, and that was kind of interesting because you see things from the teacher's perspective, which I hadn't really experienced before. Let's just sort this out. Okay, here we are. All right. John says English, please. Okay, well, we'll see what we can do. Oh dear. Okay. Oh, I think we have somebody else in the room here.
Hello, Shingles. How's my sound?
That might be Joe. How are you, buddy?
Good, good. How are you today?
I am very well. If I could just get my bloody thing to shut off here. Sorry, no. Oh, there we are. Yeah, I have it. I have the video actually playing in the background just to do a sound check. So I had to pause that.
Oh yeah, that's what I do. I leave it going for a few seconds, and then Google will actually give you your sound check by starting up the video in the background.
That's right. It's really helpful, isn't it?
So it was irritating until I got a better attitude about that.
You thought they were invading your space.
Yeah, it's like oh, that background YouTube stuff, and then it's like, oh, I could use that for a sound check when I'm doing things alone.
Yeah, this is exactly it. It's really helpful.
Yeah. I was looking on your page. It's not up yet.
It should be now. If you click onto my channel, I'm hoping that it'll be up now.
Let me see. Let me reboot it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I can type in the chat too now.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Got John here saying English, please.
Okay. Yeah. So what's the topic today? We're gonna do a monologue.
A little bit, but I suppose really it's kind of, I don't know if you caught it there. I think you might have just been like joining, but I had a bit of nostalgia today because I came back because, as you know, I work abroad, and I came home like this weekend, and I wasn't supposed to be home, but I got home anyway, and I made it happen. Okay. I made it happen, and I'm back now, and I just went to my old high school just to go back to.
Oh.
So I'm.
Yeah. Ooh, waiting for people to join. Well, I think Shingles chopped out for a second. Let me look and see what's going on here.
There we go. You know what could happen there?
Oh, did you drop? Okay, you dropped out for a second.
Oh, okay. I'm not too sure why, but there you go.
Okay. Yeah, so nostalgic about, did you go back to your childhood, or did it bring a lot of old issues up, or did it bring like a smile to your face, or thinking about like, oh man, what it was like when you were young?
Yeah, no, it brought a smile to my face. It was a happy time. Well, school wasn't necessarily a happy time, but certainly the learning process, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And even though I didn't particularly enjoy the institutions that, you're forced to be in as a consequence, but there was one teacher I had, a science teacher of mine, so I wanted to
Hmm.
go back and pay her a visit, but turns out she was on a half day. But I'll come back next month when I'm home, and I'll go in again. As I met one of the other teachers, and it was all good. But yeah, no, it just sort of got me thinking, about different perspectives, and when you go through life, you often encounter people with different perspectives than yours, and it kind of gives you a different slant on things. Like for example, in the school system where you are the student and then you think about the way things work from the student's perspective, and then you go back to the school as an adult from an adult's perspective. In other words, from the teacher's perspective, and it just offers you a different point of view, which I found quite refreshing, I must say.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You fail to see those things from an adult point of view when you're in school, but you can go back and that's growth. That's the kind of growth that we talk about in MGTOW, being aware of other people.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're a child and you're just aware of yourself, and it's hard to think out of that box.
That's right. Yeah, it's a very like egocentric sort of view that people have for a long time, and like some people like never grow out of that. It's like
Yes.
the simp, the blue pill simp. He's always in this egocentric construct where he has to do it for his woman all the time. It's constantly, oh, I gotta get a better job so I can, impress that bitch or whatever it is. So
Yeah, yeah. We say, women only mature for 4 to 14, but what comes along with that statement when we make that statement, like you said, a very egocentric point of view, a childish point of view, where they're not aware of the influences they have around, everybody they touch or everybody they come around. Everything that they do influences other people, and they're not aware of other people's feelings and
yeah,
the way other people think about things. And that's when you start growing in life. And I think that's the ability most men have, that we're children up to, like, 17, 18 years old. We get out in this world, and then we start taking on this sense of empathy, this sense of true compassion, and we look around and we notice that we can see other people. We can see ourselves in other people, and that's what empathy is, the ability to see ourselves in other people. But then we notice that women don't have that thing.
that's exactly it. And I mean, it's scary to see it, because you see it with your own two eyes, like, no matter what encounters you have with women. And I mean, like, for example, with the science teacher who I went back to see today, I
Yeah.
think back now and I realized, right, that she's probably a thundering bitch. But like when I was like, say, 12 or 13 years old, she made science very interesting for me, and I was very grateful for that. And what she did was she compartmentalized things in a very rational sort of controlling way, which is actually quite destructive, really. But because science is quite a rigid subject, you need some good foundations there, and sometimes that can kind of help to give the student a good bedrock to begin with, a proper foundation, so then they can go off then and then do the multifaceted stuff which is needed to do real work.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had a female science teacher, and it was the basic science that I can't remember. I don't know what you guys call it anymore. In high school nowadays, it was a physical science course,
Right.
and that leads to a chemistry course, and then like a biology course and stuff like that. But you get that first physical science course, uh, and she was very good at what she did. I never complain about. She was old. God, she was really old at that time. Her name was Mrs. Jorgensen, but I still look back at that, and that was about ninth grade, I think it was. Uh,
So what age is
well,
that for all of our European listeners who don't go by the American school system? So
oh yeah, we go.
if you're in the ninth grade,
Yeah,
you're about what age? Maybe 11, 12 or something?
yeah, you're 14, 14, 15. Let me see. Ninth grade it's K1 through 9.
Okay.
17 is 12. So work back from that, 12. So you're about 14 years old.
Right, right. Right.
maybe 13. Yeah, it was in a, no, it was it was earlier than that. It was in a more like the sixth grade because I took a course before I was supposed to start taking a course. Uh, the school that I was at offered a so I think yeah, it was about 11 years, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, you know, sometimes some schools will offer a course that's a high school course for a credit when you're in junior high still.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I took that, and it was a physical science course. She was very interesting, and I still remember her because she said some things about sociology that
Right.
she was mad that sociology was invading the physical science realm.
Well, that's a good thing to hear, because it's true.
Yeah, it is true. We see how that played out over the years with you know, the modern sciences and everything. And you know, back in my day, I don't know what physical science for you was. It was, you know, taking some hydrochloric acid and see what happens on stainless steel, regular metal, stuff like that. You know, it's
Yeah,
just and then explaining what is happening, stuff like that, and learning about you know, I don't know, paper some days, how paper is produced and stuff like that. Oh wow. Waiting for people to join this video. Share okay.
yeah.
Are you doing
What,
that with the bookmark?
what was that? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. It said bookmark or something, and I was like, "How are you doing that?"
It, it said bookmark. Where did you see that on your screen?
Yeah, I don't think everybody else sees it. It says sharing. Did you share the link with somebody?
I shared it in the Google Hangouts page in Milk Apple, but that was before I went live.
Oh, okay. Because something just shared there. I was like, "Wow, I'd never seen that before." But I'm never really in a lot of podcasts where it's not my podcast, so I don't
Yeah,
see it
yeah.
from the other side of the. I don't see it from the other side of the screen.
As a guest, yeah.
Yeah, as a guest. It's like some of the things that happen. I'm like, whoa, what was that?
You see, I have a machine I got a laptop I think it has 8 gigs of RAM, which is pretty nice. But I have about like 370 different like tabs open on like 6 windows. So,
Oh my,
so it
300.
yeah, I build them up for like maybe 6 weeks, and then I just try and like offload them onto like a Word file or something because I have a lot of thoughts and I put them into tabs, but I need to organize my tabs and I never get around to doing it. So when I do something like a
Oh,
podcast, then I end up like not having enough like RAM memory, so I might get cut off or something. That might be the case, or else it's just my internet
oh,
connection.
okay. Yeah. Do you do like a mind map with the tabs?
That's exactly it. And then I'm like, well, how did I start it? And then I forget where the starting point was, and then I got to consult my
Yeah.
other. Oh, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Sometimes I try to set that up where I'll do a mind map and from, you know, because ideas, one idea leads to another and then the other next idea, and you come up with an idea at the end and you have all these little articles and stuff that's set that really is your credentials.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, but I often forget to put the credentials in the low bar so people can see I'm not just talking out of my ass. Sometimes I'm looking at a computer screen and I got all the, you know, I've got all the credentials from all the people that agree with me on stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got some citations, man.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Is there?
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so
No. Yeah.
what was your experience with your first grade, ninth grade science teacher?
Well, it was lovely because that's exactly the person who I went to see today.
Yeah,
So, yeah, yeah, it was really, really nice, and that's exactly why I wanted to go back and just express my thank you for, making the subject sort of like bearable, shall we say, but just making I suppose the bigger point was making school bearable because I didn't like
yeah.
any of the other classes, but when I went into her class, I always felt much, much better about things in my life in general. I don't know what it was. She had this like certain aura about her that just made it very like I wanted to be there.
Okay, yeah. Now, did you have do they in your high school? I know when I went to high school, they had a problem kind of filling the physical science and the science areas with teachers, and
Oh
often
yeah.
you would get a math teacher teaching it, or you'd get an English teacher teaching it, or you'd get somebody that was as close as they could find teaching it. But there's always this rotating thing with the sciences with
There is
teachers.
yeah, that's been a constant problem for the last like 30 years, and it's actually getting worse.
Is it getting
I,
worse?
oh,
Okay.
big time, Joe. Yeah, because like the problem, and I was having a conversation with a guy on the plane the other day about this. It's just done the same procedure, and he's Swedish, and he was saying, you know, we're struggling to find like doctors and nurses and police people and various like public servants because the wages have stagnated in the last since the 1960s, really.
Okay.
They've been struggling to get people to do those sorts of jobs for the wages that are being offered.
Right,
Uh,
that's what I was thinking. That's the important part. With a ninth, well, let's say a physical science teacher, the qualifications you have to be a physical science teacher in a high school and make maybe in an American standard like $50,000 a year, 30 to $50,000 a year. On a business standard, those same qualifications can get you 120 plus.
That's exactly it. Yep. And I was talking to my lecturers in college when I was finished, like, because the way when you're finished, like, it's kind of easier you have a better relationship with these people when you're not their student, because it's there's always that level of formality that they have to have with you. But I find if you go back when you're finished with them, like formally, they're much more open to discussing things in general. Um, but it's like one of my lecturers was saying. He was saying that I went for an interview for a job in a large. He was going into the like stocks and shares, like the kind of
Yeah.
in one of those big financial institutions. And he was saying, I mean, I could have like one wrong decision that I made, and like Tesco could have closed down, which would be like a Walmart like TE guys. So he was saying I couldn't deal with like the moral ramifications of the decisions that I was making at work. So I just said no, I'm going to leave it and I'm going to go back teaching.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. The stocks and the Wall Street and everybody. They're always looking for mathematicians and engineers and stuff like that because they're still stuck on that F to G compilation thing where they're
Yeah.
looking for peak happiness.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And
Is that
when you apply that to stocks and bonds, you're looking for peak. Their idea of peak happiness is peak money.
Yeah, but you've seen the curve on that thing though, haven't you? Where it's like it kind of tails off. It's like once you earn past
Yes.
60 grand, it levels off. So you can earn 130K, your happiness is you're only marginally happier.
Yeah, yeah. And the truth about that, when they did that experiment back in the 80s, I can't remember what it was called, the F to G compilations for the Wall Street guys. They're paying these guys big bucks, and the mathematicians and the scientists were laughing at them because uh,
Yeah,
because they knew it was a false equivocation of this peak happiness thing, and they knew it was what's the line they used? They said you're going to get there when you get there, and you're going to have to put the work into it and everything. And this doesn't change anything. It just gives you a representation of a graph. I mean, we can figure it out, but it's not going to change anything in the real world, is what they were saying. And they were kind of snickering behind the Wall Street moguls' backs, and they paid them big bucks to do that. I can't remember. I will look it up someday and see what that actual that study was that they did. And
yeah, that would be interesting.
it was the first time where I looked at scientists and I went, scientists are snarky people.
Oh yeah, well, they're actually not very nice people, and I had that experience because I myself was going to go into academia, and I just said, "Nah, I'm okay, I'm all right," because I
Yeah,
realized because
yeah. It
I
would
was
look
in
great.
university and I was
It would
like
look great on an application if you had 2 years maybe as a teaching assistant or something. That would look great on an application, but making 30 to 40,000, or I don't know what it is in EU money or Irish uh,
Euro, yeah.
euros. It's probably not much more than American teachers make, which is not enough for some of the, if you're teaching social studies or a reading class or something like that, you don't have the greatest of skills, but science class and stuff like that, no, they got to pay at a rate that is competitive with industry.
That's absolutely correct. And what you'll find is that, like, say, like, I was looking because my college was looking for like new physics like lecturers, and they were also looking for like civil engineering lectures, and they were also looking for lectures in like horticulture, which of course is something that's
Horticulture. Okay.
which is like not particularly when you compare it to something like civil engineering or like something proper. You know what I mean? It's they're two very different fields. But
Yeah.
the wages were the exact same,
The wages were the exact same. Yeah.
which is absolutely ridiculous. I was like,
Yeah.
this is obscene. I mean, the idea is with the universities and the colleges and the schools is you want to get some of the best people in the business to come
Yeah.
into those places and rescue those kids, get them out of there with a sense of like, proper ethic and like a work ethic and a good like conscientious attitude towards your work and like proper uh, like like three-dimensional thinking and all those obvious things. But when you when you make the wages, when you flatten the wages, those who are really good at what they do, they're going to end up just going into private companies because they're going to say, no, 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 I've had enough of this. I could, why work like way below my standards, get like pencil raises like flung at me by some kid who doesn't give a shit. And I could be earning three times as much sitting in a nice office where I'm not bothered and doing something that is a bit more cerebral.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Now,
so,
you make them decisions like what's more comfortable and stuff like that. Always filters into my decisions. Like at least now that I'm older and everything, what's more comfortable? What where do I get to sit the most and stuff like that. I give away a little for that, but
that's okay too.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, it wasn't at all surprising, why teachers are having these problems and why it's only going to continue to be a problem because those at the top who are making these decisions, given the fact that it is a government-funded program,
Right.
I don't see the end in sight. But what I do see though is that the kids nowadays, I mean, like we had this thing called the BT Young Scientist competition. It's basically where all the kids who were like of high school age entered this scientist like competition. They come up with their own like projects and what type of like microorganisms affect this chemical reaction, and
Mhm.
they take an interest in things around them and stuff, and they bring in their projects to their schools and they work directly with their science teachers, and then if their idea is good enough, they go to the regional finals and they make their way into the big one. So the big one was on today, and the winner was announced there about an hour ago. And
Okay.
the guy who won it, he's like 15. He's from like Cork. He's like down the bottom of.
Oh, what was his topic? Oh, there you go again. He dropped out. And maybe I dropped out. Waiting for people to join the video call. Permanently share the bookmark and come back anytime.
I'm out again. Am I?
Yeah, that yeah, it's a something that was the thing I was thinking when your internet's probably booting you off for a second there,
Just for a stray second. Yeah,
and
it
then it
might be.
connects you. Did it
It might.
connect you back on or did you have to actually physically connect back on?
No, I just connected back on automatically. I just sat here and did nothing.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, that was the message I was getting. I was like wondering what that was. So now I know. I put all that together in my head.
Shingles doing some voodoo shit here. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, we're getting an ice storm here right now, so I'm kind of worried about connections and everything right now because that ice is building up on the lines,
Oh shit! Yeah.
and it's going to start weighing down the lines. And that's when I wish I was in a lineman, because this time of the year after an ice storm is when you pull in big bucks.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going down to visit my sister. She lives like maybe an hour's drive away from where we're at, and we were just driving along, and then all of a sudden, on one of the roads, the flipping power line went down right across the middle of the fucking road. So I was
Ooh,
thinking to myself, Jesus
yeah.
Christ, it's about like I think.
Ooh, there he went out again. Yeah. Yeah, linemen around this time of year is good work, especially if you have your own truck and a way to shoot, get yourself up to those. You don't want to be a pole climber anymore. Pole climbers are kind of obsolete now. But I've seen guys with climb poles before, and do that kind of stuff. But there's a trick to it.
There certainly is.
And yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get a. I have a buddy that right now he's licking his chops right now because he's got a big truck. It's got a lift on it. He's like waiting for the calls to start rolling in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's the way to do it, and that's what we're about here in MGTOW is just like it's identifying the work that needs to be done in the local economy and then get skilled in that, and then you can subcontract yourself out, and you can make a lot of money while well, not while the sun shines in this case, but weather permitting.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, that's what we talk about a lot. Specialization. That's what you were talking about before, and with the kid that won the science contest. I was going to ask you, what did he do? What was that specialized thing that he did that the school identified as something that was good?
So I think I haven't read the article in full, but basically what he was doing was he was looking. He's a farmer, so his granddad was a farmer and his dad was a
Okay.
farmer. They're from a farming background, and I suppose he was saying like it said in the article that people like scientists are taking things, they're making things too complicated nowadays with all these like special like formulations and and technology, and like I think like Japan were just recently like turned down because they wanted to build something equivalent to the large hadron collider, that big like that thing over in CERN with
Yeah,
the
yeah, the CERN, both the colliders, the small, what do
yeah
they call the small one? And they got the big one. I had some ideas about what they were doing with that
yeah
because you don't build something like that and not look for some future profits down the road with it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that thing was what, like 8 miles, like in diameter or something. It was huge. It still is, of
Yeah,
course. And they're some of the most sophisticated, like, detectors in the world, which of course cost billions. I mean, it's a huge.
right. Yeah, yeah. What they're doing is they're pulling off right now. They're pulling off hydrogen from other what would seem to be negatively charged hydrogen
Right.
from the other side of the universe or some other universe, and they got like a gram of this stuff now,
Yeah.
and it's like it's valued at like 2 billion something, $2 trillion or something like that.
Oh, that could be the
So
antimatter or something like that.
yeah, the antimatter that they're pulling off, they have a gram of that now. Now I was thinking the whole thing. They have a river that a stream that runs down through that thing, and most people don't know that. Uh,
Right.
it's for the cooling water and everything. And I was thinking, you know what this thing is in essence? It's a big hydrogen generator.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they always have. As I work in construction now, and I've noticed, like, say, in these big like pharmaceutical plants, and you know this like yourself. I didn't realize the amount of like cooling systems and filtration systems that they have exclusively for just water.
Oh yeah, water goes through those. They built those both those things right over a stream, which I found interesting because they have the gold piles. Each one of those connectors are all gold coated. Do you ever look at the cost and value of those things that they have in there? And there's
Huge.
there's literally thousands of them in there. I don't know how many. And there, so this thing is like it's not a throwaway toy that they were
No,
just. A lot of
no.
people look at it and go, "I was just they're just experimenting. It's a throwaway toy." No, they're doing something, and that could provide energy in the future. And we don't know what this negatively charged hydrogen stuff is. This black matter that they call it. I can look it up and find out the exact name of it. I think it's H4 or something like that. H4 negative,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and we don't know we don't know what we could do with that yet. We don't know if it's possibly one of the largest power supplies in the world, and like I'd hate to think that we're stealing resources from another planet to get this or another universe or something because it's kind of like this alternate universe thing when you start thinking about that in that way. What is this stuff that they're
yeah,
pulling off?
yeah,
It's
yeah. It's coming from somewhere.
yeah, it's coming from somewhere. There's a yin and this yang with the universe where this is negatively charged, so it's the opposite of what we're seeing on this planet.
Hmm.
And it's like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I don't know how you would what the implications if it comes in contact with the positively charged hydrogen molecule that's normal and stuff like that. But they'll find out. Someone's going to do that experiment.
Well, that's what the antimatter is, as far as I can remember. It's you got this thing called pair annihilation. It's where you've got your negative electron, and then you've got your positive electron, which is called the positron. And if the two come together, you get a thing called pair annihilation, which is basically like you basically create like antimatter. So
Oops, there he goes again. The weather's taking toll on the Irish Sea there.
crap. Anyway,
Did it to you again? Yeah.
I
The Irish.
guarantee if I didn't have those tabs open, this probably wouldn't be happening. But
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have
The Irish Sea is working against you there. It's knocking at you.
I'll have to sort myself out before I do this again.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's amazing, really. There's like I read about it before. You've got this like you've got the electron, and then you've got the anti-electron, which is called the positron. And if the two of them come together, you get this thing called like pair annihilation, and that's the antimatter right there. It was discovered back in the 30s by a guy called Paul Dirac.
Okay.
He basically did he came up with the equation for the definite statement of the electron. It was the first time it was ever done, and he won the 1933 Nobel Prize with Erwin Schrödinger on that work.
Okay. Yeah. What was the result? I wonder what the visual result of that is, and what kind of
yeah
what kind of how does it influence the universe around it when you do that thing? That's what would be interesting. How can we apply this? I mean, we have to work into applied sciences now. How can you apply this to what we can do for humanity? Is this a power source? Is this everybody always thinks of power, but maybe there's some other implication to communications or a lot of different things. I don't know yet. We don't know yet. Nobody knows yet about those things.
Apologies, Joe. I just went out again. But yeah, no, you are right. I mean, it's about the actual like real life physical application of these, like natural phenomena and the effect that it's going to have, because everything is cause and effect, So it's like, what's the ramifications of pulling energy from here and dumping it somewhere else? It's like you got your electrical circuit. If you're gonna, it's like if you look at a panel and you see one of the resistors blown, like then if there was probably like a current surge or somewhere, but like the current surge came from somewhere else,
Yeah. Now I always thought like, okay, if we can shoot it to one of the moons of Jupiter or something, at the hydrogen moons, or even Jupiter itself, and then we can start drawing hydrogen off of Jupiter through this process of a black hole, and then start bringing hydrogen into our universe here that we can use stuff that would be great. I mean, I don't know how you do it. You would have to have something land on Jupiter so you can, and then you would have to develop links and stuff like that where you can bring this through this, it's my name, traversable wormhole.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose really it's, what was I going to say? Like what's always fascinated me has been like, and even the conversation that we're having like right now, it's been streamed through the internet, and it's a radio broadcast. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated by radios and how a radio signal works. You've got your audio frequency, and then you got your carrier frequency. So you have the audio frequency, which is like my voice and your voice, which is of the order of maybe like 100 or 200 hertz.
Yeah.
And then you got the carrier, maybe it's a couple of megahertz or whatever it is. If it's AM radio, it's in the kilohertz range, but it's superimposed on that carrier, and then it just like gets, you can ping that thing across the planet. It's amazing. So I don't know how that whole extraction of energy system would work, considering.
Oops, we did it again. Yeah, I think in the idea of a simple radio wave or a microwave wave, which is a microwave wave is a simple radio, can we get it to actually carry something else with it? And that would be the interesting part. And this whole thing has a lot of implications. If we can get a radio wave to carry a small molecule back to Earth, and then we start mining that way,
Yeah,
stuff like that. There's a whole broad application of a stream mining.
there is. There is. My mic keeps cutting out. It's really irritating. I'm sorry. I missed the last of what you were saying. You were saying like if we can like capture like a biomolecule in that wave and then bring it back, then the ramifications could be huge because you could amplify the output or whatever.
Right, you can amplify the output. Then all of a sudden you have something that'll carry a hydrogen molecule back, or any kind of ferrous molecule, or any kind of molecule with it on the back of a radio wave, or what we perceive as a radio wave. And then you just start mining, and then
Yeah,
okay, now we have a new how we don't have to deplete our resources on this planet, especially with hydrogen, which the byproduct of burning it gives you heat, and then it gives you, the byproduct is oxygen, and
yeah.
hence water.
Wow. Yeah, it's the limitations or the scope is unlimited really, and if we could just take some time out of our day and have a little think about it, it's amazing what could be achieved. And I had this conversation with my dad a couple of weeks ago, and like he was we were having the same sort of talk about people in the workforce and like what's going on in relation to the very skilled
Hmm.
people who are capable of making these discoveries. But what I've always said is that you've got these really high IQ, intelligent people who are in these software companies like Microsoft or Google or
Yes.
Apple or wherever they're working. But if we could take these people's minds, because they're very intelligent folk, if we could take them out of those private, like say, like my argument is like, say you got like Windows like 10, right? I don't know what operating system you're off now, but I'm off Windows 7 right now, and I'm pretty damn happy with that, right? And like
Yeah.
you got like Windows 10 now, which I think is a bit like there's nothing wrong with Windows 7. Windows 7 was perfect, right?
Right.
So I'm like, well, like say the big drive for these companies, because it's all profit, of course, is for their engineers, their software engineers, to make these new operating systems, which are even more efficient than previous. But certainly, it's a helpful thing. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, well, if those really smart people who are working in these really obscure jobs, like you got, like for example, those people who calculate like insurance premiums, I think they're called actuaries or something like that. But they're working these really obscure jobs, and they're very smart people. But if they could be like redistributed, that their interests could be redistributed, and that we could like that money wasn't such a drive, that
More practical, pragmatic things. If we can get them working on more practical, pragmatic things, which solves problems in this universe and the natural world we have to live in, rather than some of these highfalutin ideas about string theory and stuff.
That's right. That's exactly it. I mean, that's another point. Exactly. You've got these really capable people who work in academia, and it's like, what a waste because they're not actually there's no application. They're not helping humanity out. I mean, it's nice to think about these things as a hobby on your own time, but
Yeah.
that's a big reason why I didn't go into academia was because I was looking around me and I was seeing all these people that were, very 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 capable, but they were just wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, yeah, that's sort of like you see the engineer that has no idea how to change his, he's got great skills, but he has no idea how to change his electrical socket at home. He has to call an electrician because it's so much below. He overthinks it and he doesn't understand it. And it's just a simple process, being more pragmatic about things sometimes. You mentioned that at the beginning, like about being, kind of centered on in reality.
That's right. Yeah, and just bringing it back to basics, and that was the message of that young kid who won the science competition in Ireland today. It's like
Yeah,
it's the biggest like science competition that a person under the age of 18 years of age can win in the whole country. So
yeah,
and
yeah.
like he's probably not the most cerebral guy in the world. Like he probably wouldn't be super good at the complicated math or whatever. There's probably thousands of kids in the country who could kick his ass in science in maths tests, but that's not the point. what he had was a vision, and he said, right, well, I'm going to go out into my back garden, and I'm going to keep things simple and practical, and keep them at a locality, and I'm not going to get too worried about the specifics or the technical specifications. I'm going to go out there and just have a little look around my garden, and maybe some of the active ingredients in some of my plants, for example, in some of all my shrubs along the walkway there, maybe they could kill some of the bacteria that he has kept in the lab in school. So that's what he did. He took like 8 or 10 of the plants, and he brought them into his school where they were keeping all the agar plates and all the Staphylococcus aureus, that bacteria that can infect human cells. And he was
Yeah.
having a look at it, and he said, "Right, well, let's see what happens now if I add this." So basically, he was using like plants for like their medicinal like properties.
Okay, yeah, and that's from sometimes children they think real practical about those things. He's like it, it yeah, it's you could take a look at that stuff, and he's like, okay, now some scientist or somebody out there might be inspired by it and go, oh yeah, we're overthinking this thing. Let's get back to the basics. What around the home, what around the things that really affect us, and really could have these great uh, raises in the human condition. But we get people thinking about I don't know, very weird stuff in science now.
Yeah,
And I know you've seen it happen a million times where a professor will start talking about something, and then 15, 20, 30 minutes later he's gone so far off a base that the
yeah,
whole class is looking at him, and he's like, but I regress.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I digress. Anyway.
Yeah, I digress. And like, okay, I get it. Where did I go with that?
Yeah,
That's just a 40-minute waste of time.
pretty much. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's amazing, and people can get lost in the ozone, and it's I need to
Yeah,
remember.
you can start thinking about a lot of stuff. You just take one simple basic scientific rule or scientific thing, and then just take it way, way deep. You could spend like 20 years to find out it has no practical applications, like developing a black hole. It's like, okay, I got this black hole. I can put my hand in it, and it just kind of disappears, and I don't know where it goes. But that has no real application.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, I got this thing, and it's
yeah.
like it's groovy to have around the house. It does tricks and shit. But
That's it.
unless I can make it, so it helps, or at least we can apply it. It's no good. It does nobody no good.
Yeah, exactly. It just ends up being a waste of taxpayers' money, to be honest with you, at the end of the
Oh
day.
yeah. Do you ever think about the Human Genome Project?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of great technology and advances came from the Human Genome Project, and it was a $2 billion project at the time with Scott Smalls, and I can't remember the other guy's name up in Berkeley, and then there was a guy up in New York. Uh, but this $2 billion project, what they find out is, you can read the book by Susan. All they came up with this huge project is like, if you eat these certain type of foods, you have a better chance of not developing Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was nice to know about the human DNA and stuff like that, and all the experiments that they did, and the large amount of money that they sunk into it. But what actually came of that project?
yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah,
not terribly familiar with the history because it was a bit before like my time type thing, but I'll definitely have a little look into it and see ultimately what the major outcomes of it were. And it's like you say, they were just kind of like marginal sort of but see, that's always been what science has been all about. It's just these marginal increases over the space of like it might be like 50 years worth of research and about
yeah,
say 10,000 people working on something, and the actual the knowledge that they've actually extracted out of that process is quite minimal.
yeah, yeah. So it did have some. It provided some links to neural Darwinism, and yeah, how to you know how to untangle our dendrites and stuff like that, or give new neurons to the brain mass and stuff like that. But and maybe it gave us a mole to a scientific mole so we can look at like how we develop this research. It gave us these patterns of searching out for research, but short of that it really didn't do what we're gonna start cloning people and making babies with clones and stuff like that. Now that was never going to transpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot of projects like that going on now with science instead of practical. That's why you gotta love a guy like Elon Musk.
Oh, absolutely.
He took all those young scientific brains and everything, and he gave them focus. He's a manager, is what he's done, and he's like, okay, let's he opened up a bunch of labs, and he says, okay, let's show me something how it works,
Yeah.
and he funded them, and maybe something will come out more. It's a more practical way of thinking about things. He manages it, and he takes all these great brains and he puts them together, and they're sending things to Mars now, and we're actually doing things in the space industry that was pretty much driven by him now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's really, we need more people like that, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like those are the real types of people, and it's tough to keep them because like they're so kind of rare. Unfortunately, it's like those are the types of people who we need in schools.
Yeah, yeah, they give you focus, to refocus you when you start drifting off into this great world of science and everything, and like no, bring you back to reality and say, what are what can you do with this? What's the practical application of this? And
Yeah.
if it doesn't have one, then it's okay. That's all fine and dandy, and we'll put that away. But let's work on something that has some merit.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a nice anomaly, but if it doesn't really have any, if it's not going to help you and me today, then we might need to put that on the back burner in terms of our priorities.
Yeah, yeah. Let's think about, hey, how can we make a battery that'll last more than like last a year? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is kind of why a lot of the scientists you say as people in general can be quite snarky, and you're right because what they end up doing is they spend, excuse me, like say maybe 7, 8, or 10 years like defending some work that they'd done previously, and they're trying to get it published, and they're trying to get it published, and they're trying to get it published, and it's just the whole. At the end of the day, what it all boils down to is much ado about nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is kind of unfortunate, and that's why I like where I work now. I mean, it's great because everybody around me, I've got electricians around me, I've got like construction managers and people who are on the floor getting things done and making a pharmaceutical plant work. That's pretty fucking awesome.
yeah. That is when you think about that. That's you could see some kind of product coming out of the end. There's an end result to all these great minds. I think MGTOW's going through that right now with sort of the red pill coinage thing and the questions that we're asking. You know, going through that same sort of thinking right now. What's the product? What is, if I'm going to invest in this thing? Well, how's it going to change my life? How's it going to help men in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just getting the guys beyond the anger and beyond the anguish and just getting on to the next step. And it's okay. We've clarified that you've been lied to for all those years about women and
No.
society in general. And okay, now you've gotten over that. You've taken a year or two to kind of get over that hump on the road. Okay, so what's next? What's next? That's the biggest thing, and I think that's the reason why we see people like Warhorse and like Heartburn and all these other people who've kind of come and gone through like
Yeah.
like your sort of channel, Trav, and kind of what you do here in particular is kind of, I think now maybe not with those two, but there's about at least like 30 or 40 guys like similar who maybe weren't so active, I suppose, but they've been around here and they've realized where it's at, and now they're getting on to the next sort of step. I know that's not implying that we aren't, but it's sort of Some people just choose to be more sort of what's the word, present around here than others.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's the same concept. Uh, where you oh, I'm getting a little feed echo there. Yeah, it's the same context where you kind of need a manager. You know, you kind of need someone giving people direction and saying, "Here's the next step, and this is where we can influence things." But that's a hard thing to come by. This was a young program and everything, but you know, teamwork, and it always works out the same way in the dynamics. Uh, you know, teamwork, and then you have a manager, that's his skill. You know, spotting pragmatism, and so where's applied MGTOW at?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
uh, that's the part where we have the same problems as the whole rest of the world, don't we?
yeah. Effectively, yeah. It's just that we come at it from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, I got to jump out for 1 second. I got a chicken roasting,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
all right,
it's a
man.
it's a chicken soup. I got to turn down the heat on a little bit, and I'll be right back.
Oh, oh. There we are. All right. Yeah. So, while Joe is just gone there, I don't know. Am I on? Oh yeah, there we are. I'm on. Yeah. So Joe is just heading out, getting himself his roast chicken, and that's all good. So I hope you're all well. We haven't got a lot of listeners, but that's okay. I don't particularly mind that because that's not really why I'm here. As I'm here for those who are going to be listening and taking it in and sort of just sitting with it and chewing it and like letting that thing marinate like Joe's chicken at the moment and all those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was digging through my garage, and I found my old I have one of these rotisserie chicken roasters.
Oh, like the ones you see in the butchers and stuff.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the butcher shop and the convenience stores, and that chicken always tastes better than normal chicken. And I was like, oh man, I have one of these things. And so I brought it in, cleaned it up today, and then we went out and bought a chicken, and I was like, yeah. And now you turn the light on it, and it kind of spins there. It's almost like a TV show. It's like, oh, that looks beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I'm watching right now.
Where did
I
you
should
get
have
it?
filmed it.
Yeah.
You know what? My mother bought it for me when she was still alive. I was,
Wow.
it was one of those. I was looking at like some store or something. I was like, look at that! It's a rotisserie chicken. And if I had that, I wouldn't have to walk up to the convenience store.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
And then she like bought it for me. She's like, here, and it's like, wow, thank you.
That's really nice. That's really nice. That's pretty good, man.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. Yeah. So we went up to the store earlier, and oh man, I overshopped again. I was like, I
Oh,
want this, I want this, I want this, I want these, I want a couple of these, and by the time I'm walking, I was like, man, I
were you
just dropped.
hungry?
Yeah, I was hungry. I just dropped
Yeah.
$50. I bought fruit, and which I really never buy.
That's all.
So
That's the biggest problem. If you shop when you're hungry, it's a big mistake. But well. Sometimes it's good to just stock up, especially when it's icy outside and it's have a bit of an extended winter. Fuck it.
yeah, 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 yeah. So we bought rice too. We bought a big bag of rice. It's like on sale. It's like $6 for 50 pounds. I was like, got to get one. I should have bought two, and do the and do the MGTOW thing where I'm preparing for this apocalyptic thing. At least I'll have rice to eat.
Like a prepper, yeah.
Yeah, prepper things. I should you get some 5-gallon buckets and put it in a 5, seal it.
Yeah, you put Vincent to shame.
Yeah, yeah. So that's good. I'm always interested when I do go to the store about the economies, and now that we're getting different kinds of fruits and vegetables from places that are their season's coming in.
Yeah,
And then I start looking at the prices of those, and then start doing like what comes from in and how we trade. And it's an interesting thing to start looking at around this time of the year when you can, okay, yeah, we're sitting here through winter now, and our crops aren't in, and we can rely on a different portion of the world and how important that trade and communal thing is, you know.
Absolutely, big time. These things are essential.
Yeah, yeah, and we see a lot of in especially countries in South America and everything, and they should be doing better now, and their economy should be driven by this trade thing, but a lot of times it isn't. And
No,
I go into like comparative economics versus like ultimate economics and stuff like that as the problem. But a lot of those countries did a comparative advantage, and and then they found out, well, that's a very socialistic way to look at a world that works in capitalism. And oops, he fell out again. And yeah, so it's interesting. As a MGTOW, you look around, and every little thing starts fascinating. You even go into the grocery store, there's bigger questions to be asked about everything that's happening. How do I understand about the world around me? How I understand how this thing gets done? How I understand, I always say know how the groceries got on your shelves there, because that's men somewhere, and in this case, it's men in other countries doing that. Uh, I'm just waiting for shining or not shining shingles to reconnect here, and if he is going to reconnect this time, let me just stupid
uh,
connection. Yeah,
sorry, Joe. Apologies, man. It keeps fucking happening.
yeah, yeah. That's okay. That's just the way the world
Way the,
works now, I guess.
way the wind blows.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so with MGTOW, you look at the small things in life, and sometimes there's things that are very fascinating that you never looked at before, even at your grocery store, and how that thing works, and having a better understanding of how those things get on your shelves. That's men doing that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it gave me an appreciation. I used to work in a supermarket for like 4 or 5 years, putting myself through college and that. So it's amazing. You kind of think about the different jobs in the labor market, and it all kind of comes together, and people just diligently go to work every day, and it's a fucking miracle. You switch on the light switch, and the power's on. Hallelujah. It's wow.
yeah, yeah. Even the smallest things like slipping on your light switch, turning on your water. How'd that get there? You
Yeah,
know, every resource, gas, how did that gas line get ran? Number of men. Men are doing those things. You don't see no women on trucks right down the ice storm in Ohio running
no,
around fixing the lines so I have electric at a good pace. No, you're not going to see women doing that. And that's where we say in MGTOW, there is a difference between what we do and what you do. And there's a value in this stuff, but they don't see it as a value. That's the value that they don't see. They don't know how the supermarket works.
no. 'Cause they're morally bankrupt, and
Yeah, they look at that, and somehow magic fairies put those produce on them shelves for them, especially for them special people, and they have no idea. And I often look at Trump and what he said about if you want to eat, you got to work. And I was like, oh
yeah,
yeah, that applies to you too. You know
true.
that, you
Yeah,
know, and let's break that statement down. I do the break down the statement thing. What are we talking? We're talking about agriculture. We're talking about eat. Have you ever worked in agriculture? You're the cheater. It's not
yeah,
me. It's not me that's the cheater. I worked my time in agriculture. You worked your time in agriculture. Uh, the cheaters in this case is the guy with the big mouth. Say,
yeah. I don't know. I don't know anybody else who got $1 million handed to them at 20, whatever he was, and
oh
went bankrupt 6 times. Fucking hell.
yeah, 50 million bucks or something his father loaned him and never expected to be paid back. He just wrote it off as losses and stuff. But no, sometimes when these people speak, and these are the people driving our economies and stuff, now they haven't have the slightest. He walks in a grocery store and he thinks the same thing. I think magic fairies put this stuff here. You
Yeah,
know,
it's just oh look, here it is, here it is. Yes, we're America, we're brilliant, you know. It's like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
we're brilliant. Yeah, it's like no, no. In MGTOW, we look at those things in the worth of the male. How did all this stuff happen? You know, from ice storms in Ohio to getting electric into somewhere in Paraguay. You know, there were men doing that.
Yeah.
Uh,
All
but
the
people don't see the large picture sometimes, and it's very. I think it goes back to what we were talking about with scientists. They're highfalutin dreams and everything, and they don't see the big picture on it. The elephant in the room was staring at them, and when we did a lot of back in my youth when I was doing work for the war on drugs and out of a military capacity, and a lot of people thought that the drugs were coming in the country with just, and they still think this, little Mexican guys with knapsacks and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, you guys are so foolish. You know what it takes to run when you got 20, at that point, I think it was like 20% of Americans shoving cocaine up their nose. Uh,
yeah.
and then you figured out the bulk amount that's needed and everything. You pretty much got a country the size of Ohio and half of Pennsylvania with every need of every country, pop machines, soda machines, electricity, gas,
Oil,
hard work,
water. Yeah.
everything that a country would need, that same business of bringing cocaine into America needs.
Yeah.
So it's a little country running, and that's the way you have to start thinking about it. And those, but people, that's the elephant in the room. People go, no, no, it has to be it has to be more simple. It's this Noriega guy, or it's this guy, and he's carrying all that over on his back on a big pack. No, it doesn't work that way. Pragmatic people think differently, and I think MGTOWs think differently too. Like that, we look at the whole picture. Look at the elephant in the room. We're never going to solve this problem unless we're pragmatic about it.
It's exactly it. It's a much bigger operation than people realize, and much more sophisticated too, you know. It's much
Yeah,
more planning and preparation, and it's a multifaceted thing, you know.
yeah. So you want to look at it in perspective. Say, take the whole state of New York, or the whole country of Ireland, all working to bring drugs to other countries. You would need the same infrastructure.
You need the same.
There's bridges to be built. There's Pepsi, 7-Up, Coca-Cola, and that's when it gets interesting. You got Pepsi, 7-Up, Coca-Cola. We have big industrialists going down there working with these people, and in the trade. And then, oh, wait a second, how is the stuff getting in America? Well, let's X out that guy with the knapsack running across the border, and then insert the guy sitting next to Donald Trump, the big industrialist. He's the guy bringing it in. He's the 7-Up owner, the Pepsi. He's the guy that provided the electricity for that town so they can do that.
Yeah,
That's how that works.
he's the real hero, you know.
Yeah. But people are pretty silly. People are pretty silly with that, from science to law to everything. And even in MGTOW, we get this silliness, this random. We see things at face value, and most people, that's the only thing they're ever going to see. And I feel sorry for their lives. They can never be aware of the actual universe that exists around them.
They just
And
live in their own universe.
yeah, they live in their own little universe where they're the big. They circle around themselves.
I noticed that so much with the majority of people who I end up dealing with, like not necessarily at work, but just my family life and my extended sort of friends, and just people who've kind of walked in and out of my life the last, 10, 15 years, is that the majority of people they're just so in their own, they cannot see. It's like a disability. They just cannot
Yeah,
see beyond themselves. And it goes back to what I was saying originally at the very beginning, where you walk into that school as an adult and you see it from a different perspective this time. And but people who don't have that capacity to do those things, it's a much bigger problem than we might realize. Is more people cannot do that than you might think. It's shocking, or at least they have the capacity to do it, but they don't actively try and employ that method when they're speaking to somebody about something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We see this go into companies. We see it in schools. Large companies are great. Now that you're working in the industrial section, you notice, you, you know, there's this shape and this form of this thing, and it works well together and everything. And sometimes you rely on the people below you. Sometimes you rely on the people above you. But it's a teamwork that's happening there. I mean, we went through back in the days when I made farm plows, we went through like 3 engineers in this because all the engineers refused to work with the maintenance department.
Yeah, it
And
sounds
it's
about right.
and it was like, yeah, they were just thinking of the maintenance men as these plebes or these, these are just plebes. These are just the blue collar guys. No, them were the guys that are actually going to institute whatever you were thinking of. But there's
And then
other problems in the real world. In the real world, we have real world problems. Down here in the real world, we have real world problems. We have environmental factors that are out of this world that we have to deal with every day. And
yeah,
they could never filter and that's what, the fuzzy logic thing seems to dissipate in some of these guys.
that's right. They've the electrician. He's at the panel. And he's looking at the single line drawing, and he has the main drawing in his hand, and it turns out that the fucking design drawing was fucking wrong. It's like, well, actually, no, I've got 13 cables here. What the hell is going on? And you're
Yeah.
asking me to pull the cable up 100 meters up to the third floor, but when I have to pull the cable, there's no fucking hole in the wall to allow me to fucking do this.
Yeah.
So now and I can't drill the hole because I'll get fired because that's on my fucking job. I have to go back to the office and then ask the engineer to send a fucking request to the main contractor to get them to allow us to drill a fucking hole in the wall so I can put this fucking cable up. It's ridiculous. So it's
Right.
just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
those things that they miss. So, oh yeah, I'm the process engineer and we're the people who we design these systems and we're so fucking wonderful. Yeah, great. Tell that to the fucking instrument technician who's down here trying to calibrate your fucking transmitter and your fucking line is out. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, yeah. I ran into that once when we were doing this underground line from these from the control panel to a to the actual machine, and the machine was it's a huge machine. Now we're not talking about a little machine that sits on your desktop. We're talking about a line the size of a city block, and we were supposed to bring in like 48 2-aught cables. And
mm,
and then they screwed up on the dimensions of the pipe because they forgot to put in the return lines and
oh
everything.
fuck's sake.
And we were thinking, no. He says, well, we got two, and I says, we got two, we got one, two, three, we got two 480s that are gonna, and we need one return for each one of these things.
Yep.
And the size didn't work out, and we were just like, so we had to tear up the cement, and we had to put a box. So we took buzz rail, and we just ran it with buzz rail after that, underground buzz rail, and that worked out better. But and then we subdivided it from there. But it was like, man, these guys, they come down here someday. This,
Yeah.
come down and
I
see
see what
this
you're
stuff.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
see what
open
you're
up.
saying.
Yeah, in a steel mill, you open up a box and it's filled, it's perfectly sealed and everything. And you look at it, you open it up, and then like 5 pounds of slag falls out, 5 pounds of scale falls out of it. And you wonder why it's shorting. It's like, how did it get in there? I'm like, this box is perfectly sealed. But environmental factors, they change with heat, and it opens up little cracks here and there, and then they disappear.
That's
It's
right.
like, I can't sit there with a camera on it for like a month and watch how that thing twisted and under the heat and the extreme stress, and it's like you have to see this for yourself. You have to come in here. And I remember talking about that with one engineer, and it's like, it's perfectly sealed. I perfectly sealed the top. I put like 1.5 pounds of that goo on each entrance, and it's like, and it's still fucking happening.
Yep.
Where was it coming from?
It's
It's
like
coming.
it's just
So,
it's mad. It's like the engineer, like, he might be able to look at the panel specifications or whatever it might be, but ultimately he mightn't have been the one who designed it. So it might go back to the design team who did it like 2 or 3 years ago, and they didn't account for the thermal diffusion or the.
Yeah,
It's so obvious. It's like, of course, it's going to expand by, say, zero point 0.3 of like a millimeter, which is just enough to have you buy the next size fitting on the rung so you can actually connect the fucking pipe work. It's so basic, you know. It's just, oh my god.
yeah. In electricity, we always say, oh, rate everything at 125% because you're
Yeah,
going to need that.
you're always going to need to pull extra current from the panel. Always.
Always, rate everything, and that means pipe size, that means box size, that means you rate everything, and always give yourself a backup plan. You
Yeah.
know, and I've seen that with we put in a shaft one day on this big, it's called a pincer, and
Okay.
and a pincer just does what it does. It's like a big, like a big, huge pair of scissors that just pinches metal, red hot metal. It goes by and it pinches. It just pinches a little section where it forms the metal in that way. And there's a shaft, and we put the shaft in, and we got it measured and designed and everything. But he did the same thing, and he wanted he didn't account for the thermal expansion. And then all of a sudden the bearings are heating up, and they want me to put in there like, no, just keep it going, because once you start these things, and I said, you got thermal expansion going on, your bearings are winding in there, and their big thing was they wanted me to put in an oil flow unit to cool the whole thing, and I was like, do you know what you're asking of me?
Do
I
you want to
mean,
get fired as well as me?
yeah, and now I have to figure this thing out. I did it and everything, and I put a pump in and took the heat off, but it didn't solve the original problem. The original problem is you didn't account for thermal expansion.
Exactly. And no matter what you try and do, you're always going to be offset by that amount as a consequence of you forgetting to factor in the coefficient of resistance or whatever factor it is when you were making up your equations when you were just designing the thing. It's
Yeah, all
ridiculous.
look great on paper.
All great on paper, man, but they forget the tolerance. And it's like, what were they asking us to do earlier, like this week? Oh yeah, that was it. The piping company who's in charge of all the piping on some of the vendor stuff, right? Man, they forgot to do like leak testing on the pipes.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
It's like that's the most fundamental thing. That's like the first thing you do. And they're
Uh,
telling us that, oh, we haven't the pipes like a leak test. It's like, yeah, we're they're going to put water into it next week. Have you got your protocols? You know, what's the story? Where's your paperwork? It's like, oh no, we have a few leaks over there, and we just stuffed it with we just stuffed it with a few tea towels, and we all had to go back to the airport because we were all flying home for the weekend. It's like, oh, we'll just stuff it with some tea towels. It'll be okay. And of course, what they could have just done was just turn the water off at the mains. It would have been fine. Excuse me, but I mean,
yeah. Look, they're gonna put some duct tape on it at the. We always said duct tape was our best tool at the end of the job. It's like that's where you just patch everything up and make it work. Uh, yeah, pneumatics is that way too. When you start getting into the wonderful world of pneumatics,
air.
yeah, everybody, all companies have these big 2000 horsepower pneumatic machines running in the back, and no one ever thinks of how to pipe the air out. And you need 40 pounds here, you need 60 pounds here, you need 100 pounds, you need 120, you need blowage here and stuff like that. And people are like, oh, that's just simple, and they start throwing in those pipes any way whatsoever. And then it gets to the final product, and they're like, why don't we have the air pressure we need? Oh man, there's so many complex things. But yeah, being practical about a lot of things. It's a straight run from A to B. Keep your air pressure at its peak.
This is it, and it's like having that worst case scenario, like flow rate at the back. So when the air comes back up, you've got it all accounted for. So if two of the valves fail on the central unit, you're going to have enough air to bring it back to the original point, so it can still flow, like your air handling unit or whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to go over with my son the other day the difference between PSI and in volume, air volume, and stuff. And there's a real difference between those two. SCFM uh,
Yeah,
and PSI. And he was like, "Oh man, it's just we need 20 pounds, we need 40 pounds here." And I was like, "No, no, no, we need a volume of air." And
yeah,
now you started doing your equation here with the average air pressure on the planet is 11 point or 12 point, somewhere between 11.9 and 12.2. And then you get your CFM in your tank and everything, what you're going to need. He says, well, we wanted to paint, so we need a volume. And I said, well, we're going to have to go with a bigger tank here. And it's a simple thing like that. Everybody thinks they're going to get away with certain things that are not.
yeah. It'll just max out.
Yeah, you max out, you run out. I've seen roofers do this, a lot of roofers, and they're letting you, oh, that little thing doesn't supply your needs. Get a bigger tank.
Yeah,
Oh man, yeah, but science is all sciencey. You start looking at those things, and yeah, a few of the courses, the seminars that I went to, these things always come in lubrication, air, and everything always comes in form of seminars, and a lot of electric comes in a form of seminars, and
yeah.
and it's just great to go see that because you start applied sciences. That's what we're talking about, how we apply these things in the real world.
That's right, and that's the most. It's the most valuable, really, in most cases, because, excuse me, you get to actually see it in action, which is exactly like, because that's ultimately the goal of like the scientific method, is to make it, ultimately to make it foolproof, and then because it's foolproof, you can then begin to use it in the real world, in which you're going to you know, help the world become a better place with some, principles that are intact and solid and proof. And that's exactly what the engineer is. That's the definition of the engineer.
Yeah, that's the
He's the
definition
applied
of it.
he's the applied scientist. He takes the scientific principles and puts them into action in the real world.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
that it's that transmutation between, theoretical into practical, and it's a beautiful thing, when it goes well.
Yeah, no, I think we have to start a new MGTOW, like applied MGTOW. How to so we have this
Yeah,
program, and there's a lot of
yeah,
great ideology and everything, and people are going way too far with this stuff. But how do we apply this and
this is
apply
exactly it. I
applied
mean,
MGTOW?
as I was saying that kind of thing in my last podcast, like the hour like ramble I went on like last week or whenever it was, and I was just like, okay, so we've gotten the basics. We're over the hump. We've dealt with the tragedy of losing assets and losing people and losing memories and all those horrible things. And you've walked through the fire now. You've come out the other side and you've understood where it's at. But that doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be, the person who's sitting at the bar nursing his wounds for the rest of his days. You've got to get beyond. You've got to transcend it, because you've already, as a MGTOW, you've transcended your base nature as a consequence of not having anything to do with women anymore. That's
Yeah,
fantastic, but that's not enough now. You need to now move forward with your life. With that's what I think a lot of people around here need to do, is they've got the idea, crystallized. It's there. It's like a it's what's the word? It's like it's bubbling. It's distilling. It's being refined, but it's being cultivated. But now it's gotta. It's like you say. It's when the rubber meets the road. It's gotta.
right. Yeah, yeah. I think that's what I was talking about yesterday. How do we harness this? How do we harness this energy, or this energy
Yeah,
that we have going in MGTOW? How do we get it into synergy, from energy to synergy, so we can harness the MGTOW and make it work for all of us?
and you were saying that I was listening to your pod. I was listening to that this morning at the bus stop, actually, and I listened to it again, and I thought it was really good. When you were saying, I want to save those 100 men who were going to commit suicide,
Yeah,
and I want to take those great men who had the audacity in some respect to kind of to make that decision, and I want to say no. I want to funnel that energy. I want to make it. I want to put it into a form where it's going to be beneficial for. the MGTOWs. And if we can get millions of those little guys around the world, it would be such a better thing than what we have at the moment. And I,
Yeah, yeah, that's when you got someone that's passionate. You got someone that's that where was his life before, and go back to that. No, you got a passionate man that wants to do this MGTOW thing. That if we can just harness this, and I think that's the problem now. And I see and I hate to say it because we can look at feminism for examples of how they harnessed that energy that they had. We can look at the other movements too, from Alcoholics Anonymous to gay rights, and see
yeah,
how they harness that energy, how they harness those people, those passionate people, and then we can start emulating those things that they did, and then in the MGTOW, and then we can get, I think because we are men, uh, and we're men of such great character and quality, we can get large things done, big things done.
yeah, big scale operations involving a lot of people, and but we have to be careful who we do our business with. That's
Yeah, yeah, we
that's
have to be careful. We're very, very exclusive.
we
Uh,
cannot be foolish. We can't afford to be foolish because we've already done so much work to get our mindsets to where they are currently, and it's been a tough road for you in particular, Joe, because you've had an extended history of walking through that fire.
yeah, yeah, So I think that should be the MGTOW project. We can call it what we want. I just applied MGTOW synergy.
Yeah,
Where we can start working together as men, but we get these people that are working against us that don't understand MGTOW. Like we're not a group, men. It's just an idea, and we're not a movement. We're not a no, we are.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we got a real goal here that we got to shoot. I don't think anybody knows the goal yet.
Well, I
What's that?
think, yeah, I'm sorry to cut across you. It's like, yeah, it is true. We're not entirely sure of the goal, but I suppose the goal should be twofold. In my view, it should be like the goal of the individual man as to what he wants out of his own life after making the step, but also the goal as a general for the group. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah. And
those
at this
two
point,
parties.
the recruiting and that stuff, it's important and everything. But if you ain't heard about MGTOW yet, and with all the work we've done in the last 10 years, then I think these people are lost to begin with. There's no use. Hey, you didn't get in on the bottom end of the MGTOW stock. Uh, hey, maybe you just wait around. Maybe you'll get it later. We stop focusing on those guys and start focusing on the guys that we have and the group that we have and how to build this thing.
And
We have,
sooner or later, they're going to hear about us.
yeah, sooner or later they'll see something that we do, but we have to have practical, be pragmatic about this thing. What do we want to change? Focus on that, and
Yeah.
what do we want to build? And there's just a few things that we have on our mind, and it's the male homeless problem, temporary
Yeah.
housing for men, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, these are easy things to solve, and we have this great vast group, with really, really talented guys. We can't get together for 1 minute to sit down and have a summit that we agree on something. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty sad.
It is. Yeah. If this is exactly it. Like we're about like guys, and I mean, like if you log up the amount of time we all spend on like behind the scenes, like chatting in the hangout groups and all the chat rooms and all the chat boards and all the links we're sharing and all this information and all this time that we all spend in our days, every day, like checking who said what and things like
Yeah,
that. I find it a bit kind of I think it's touching that we have this group, and I'm really fond of it, and it's something I cherish hugely in my life. And but really, I'd like to see it maybe for 2018 and onwards. I'd like to see it get a bit more sort of like people always say that like MGTOW is a decentralized, like entity, and I'm of the opinion now where I'd like to begin to centralize it.
yeah, Yeah, we can start working for something. We all have skills and stuff. SFM right now, he's doing things, and he's not been around a little bit because he's doing something. He has his goal in his life that he wants to do, and whatever that is, we can support him on that, and
Yeah,
in more ways than one too. What do you need? What do you need to make that happen? Let's
exactly.
that's where we put the community to the test. The rubber meets the road,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and
That's exactly it.
yeah, that's But we've had so many shills and so many thieves come through MGTOW uh, that man, it's hard. It's always back to the same thing. It's hard to trust any man these days.
That's
Because you never
exactly
know.
it.
Yeah, you never know his intentions, and you never know if he's you're going to be, like I say, paying for someone else's bitch because he was dishonest with his uh, with his
Brother.
intentions.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's
that's what we get, from the MGTOW red coin to the mayor of MGTOW to Barbarossa. All those things were examples that were set. Like, yeah, can you trust men? And isn't that what feminism is saying? You guys just proved it, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly, Joe. And that's the thing with me. I'm like, if you, excuse me, if you can't trust people who you're dealing with, then you haven't got a relationship. Excuse me, you haven't got a foundation at all, and you can't do
Right.
much without trust. You know.
Yeah, you can't do nothing without that trust, and that's what we're trying to build in here, and we're trying to get men to be aware of other men's. That's where the awareness thing. You're not. Just be aware that there are humans out here. That they're like you. They're exactly like you, and you can see yourself in them. And have empathy, but. I look around now with the red pill coin thing, and after listening to Marcus for a few days on his videos, and to really get down deep into what was going on and everything, and we got another shilling money out of MGTOW instead of a housing men.
Yep.
It's like fuck, it's over and over and over again, but that's the world that we live in. That's the world we're trying to change. So what is the question with that?
Well, it's the desensitization because the people who were extracting the benefit, because they can, they're not in touch with the actual genuine pain that's being experienced by men, across the
Yeah,
planet. They're not in touch, nor do they have friends or family or relatives or anybody who they really fucking care about in their lives who have had to suffer genuinely, like these men do, who have found themselves without a place to stay.
yeah. I think
That's what.
we could do a Socratic view of what had happened and ask ourselves. We have to ask ourselves a question here: how do we identify these men? Uh, I think we know how to identify them. A shill looks like a shill is a shill, and stuff like that. And but there's bigger questions: is what does this say about us? What is this? There's a lot of questions now that need to be answered, and I think we'll get through it fine and everything. I looked at Radfem back in the day with Radfem had the problems with groupthink and the same thing that MGTOW was going through.
Yeah,
Uh, and they actually had to bring in a person, a group dynamic scientist to explain what was going on and stuff. And they found that the group, the community, it was missing. You're thinking in a bubble. It was group thinking. It was killing you, and we have to deal with those issues in MGTOW too. And but hey, that's down the road, and somebody's going to have to take a step forward, and we're going to have to trust somebody. I think we got great men like Marcus and Messenger that do they do exhibit qualities of a trustworthy male. I think I'm one of those people. I do exhibit qualities of a trustworthy male. If you, anytime in life, if you pay me to do something, it will get done.
yeah,
And stuff like that. We don't. There's no bitch brain here. There's no paying for someone else's bitch, and we don't include all that bullshit into our thinking. It's like, what do you want done? And but we have to start identifying these men.
that's it. I mean, to give it. Yeah, I mean it's like you say, Trav, we need to identify exactly what we'd like to what exactly we're trying. And you see, as you know, this is where a lot of organization well this is where a lot of groups of people who have come together throughout history have kind of gone wrong, is where they've had a group of people, they've had a great idea, they've had a wonderful network of people who have come together, but
Mhm.
then all of a sudden they started to make these decisions and then splinter groups started forming.
Right. Yeah. Splinter groups. And we thought at first that splinter groups were okay, but now we're starting to
Yeah,
see that splinter groups are just what they are, splinter groups.
massive problem.
And it's a problem. Yeah. We got the TFL, we got the PUA, we got the, purple pill guys, and we got these guys. These guys don't see the world the same way we see it.
And then you've got the other MGTOWs who are they're supposedly doing kind of what we're doing, but I don't know. They just don't have that sort of grand sense of like life experience and true. They seem to be still very sort of just sort of very mentally what's
Yeah.
the word? Just sort of they're not all. It's not that they're not all there, but it's just they're not they're not
Imma-
they're not
Immature.
oh, completely. Yeah, I'm trying to be a bit nicer than that, but but
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that
they're not
earlier
grounded.
with the disconnect. They see things surface value. It's like, what can I shill out of MGTOW? What can I get out of this
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Here's the MGTOW wave. I'm gonna ride the MGTOW wave for a while, and oh, I got a YouTube channel now. I've got 5,000 subscribers, and now I get to quit my job and tell my boss to fuck off. And
yeah,
it's really fucking shallow, man. It's like fucking
yeah.
look at
We
this.
got this.
Ah, just it's like the teenagers
Yeah,
like rebelling again. It's awful to watch.
yeah. I remember when a study that I did back, way back in the day, for the group dynamics thing, and I read an article out of Berkeley, and it was interspecific human mimicry, and I
Yeah,
thought,
I remember you
well,
talking.
that applies more to males and females, which is very it's very humanistic. Then it's not like what we identify as the chameleon effect, or the other effects we talk about. Interspecific human mimicry goes down to group formation and stuff, and then I looked into like the AA groups, and I looked at, one of the greatest examples of that was the movie Fight Club,
Yeah,
when Darla and Ed Norton were going into the groups, and they were just taking off of the groups what they could. They were skimming off all the good. They were skimming off the free donuts and the coffee that they were providing, and a happy, good feel. But they were giving nothing back to that community,
yeah, yeah.
and that's what I see. It's basically interspecific human mimicry, where they were just mimicking the group for the resources, and that's what we have in MGTOW now. They're mimicking the group for the group resources.
And it's mental resources that is the biggest thing that we offer here, and I don't think that they're actually quite getting that.
Yeah, and that's what we complain about. Like, we people start looking at us as utilities,
Yeah,
and it's the
especially. Yeah,
yeah, it's the mimickers of that. These people that just want to skim off the top and float through life and not put anything into it, and they look at us like pork chops or meat. Like they're like, oh, this is just another place where I can come and do my thing, but it, and that's very shallow. That's what bothers me about this MGTOW thing. Some days, people, like, you just take that simple little theory. We will have these people. They're here to eat the donuts, and you get happy, good feels, and emotional hugs. That's all they're here for.
yeah. They're here for like for the keck, and they're here for the.
Yeah,
It's just they're yeah. It's a really it's a horrible thing to see because you can see it's like eating bread is soon forgotten. It's and I worry about that. I don't see them sticking around. I don't see the
no,
longevity there. I don't see I don't see them genuinely having. I think in life you have to be rubbed raw for a long time until you really understand where it's at, and you can kind of you can be at peace with where the MGTOW philosophy, that's where the MGTOW philosophy makes you end up being. You end up arriving at a certain point, and
Right.
there really is no going back. But with these people, I find like you can just like I feel like they could flick a button and they could go back right back to square one.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
go
and
back to
like that's
square
where
one. That's
that's where I'm like, oh, my alarm bells are going off because I'm not too sure about that person because they're dangerous, you know, and I mean that with the greatest of respect, and maybe we ought to give them a bit more time to flesh things out a bit more. But I'm skeptical by nature, Joe, and I'm very cynical as to who we let in here, you know.
right. Yeah, them are the same people in your life that these are dangerous people. These are the people that hurt you in the begin with. They had no caring. They had no these are the people you don't want on a job because they're going to knock over the paint bucket or they don't know what they're doing or they're just tapping off of the resources that are going to be had. They have these are the people that they're not working as a team. I mean, these are the people that's going to leave the wrench in the fucking in the belting system, or the gears. They're careless and they're dangerous, and these are the people we try to put away out of our lives. So these things, the machinery of my life keeps working fine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Uh, but with that, these are just some of the growing pains of MGTOW. I think we'll figure it out.
The growing pains MGTOW. I like that, you know. I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to identify. I think we have, and we see it. MGTOW knows a MGTOW when he sees a MGTOW, and he also knows a show when he sees a show.
Yeah.
Some people are very slow on that. Them the purpley pillish kind of guys. They trust too much, and that's what got you. That trust is what got you hurt in the beginning. Trusting a woman will always get you hurt, because hey, like as TFM says, she's never loved you. You
Yeah.
try, that was something you made up in your mind. But when these guys come up with that same thing, these guys become the danger to, you know, to our program because these guys are still thinking like the same bitch brain people out there.
That's exactly it. They haven't gone through the mental floss kind of concept that well, not concept, but the attrition that you need to go through to
Yeah,
make you arrive at this point. I mean, this is a mature view. This is MGTOW is an acquired taste. You know, it's not. It won't come after a couple of years. It's got to sit. It's got to be something that's sitting with you for almost a decade. I feel before you can really take it to a point where you're saying to yourself, you know what, I really feel, or not that I feel, but I know that this is where it's at for me. And once you've gotten to that point and you can start to rearrange your life in a different way, in a way that was opposite to the way you were positioning yourself previously, you can then get to the point where you're going to say, right, I'm ready now for the next stage, and I'm going to start making plans in that direction in which I can channel my energies forward, from now on, and I can make this thing a bit better for myself, you know.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I had to talk to my son there for a minute.
That's all right. Not at all, man.
Okay, well, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up. We're getting dinner ready here, and
Yeah,
our
cool,
bird
man.
is done, and I got some work to do in the kitchen, so I can actually eat today.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's good, man.
so I think, hey, thanks for having me in, Shingles, and I
Oh
want to
yeah,
develop this thing that you like podcasting. We got to develop this. We can get our topics down better, and I really like talking to you.
yeah.
And it was great coming over here, and it's great. Thanks for letting me, you know,
Great
be
having you
part.
in, Joe. You're the biggest pitter here on this thing, and I mean, if I hadn't found you, I think I would have done what most people did is they found the MGTOW thing, and they didn't really find they found the acronym, but they didn't find the substance, you know.
Yeah,
And then they didn't find the meat and bones of it, and you provide that. You provide an excellent foundation. You're a serious rock in the community, and in my opinion, you've changed my fucking life, and that's just the way it is. And Harper did the same thing. He put out a series of very, very good videos, solid videos that really, really shook me to my core and really made me rethink about the whole sort of structure in society that we have, and the differences between men and women, and how fundamental they are, as Messenger and other content producers. And now we
Yeah,
can, like
yeah,
you say, I'm looking forward to building this as well in the years to come. My time is very limited though, because I do work full time and I work overtime as well most weeks. But I can certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, put aside 10 hours a week or something like that, or whatever it needs to be, in the next, say, 6 months to a year type thing, and we can really make something work with this. There's some great guys in the chat here. We got Whiskey, we got MGTOW Warrior, we got other people around here. If they're willing to stick around and stick it out, and if they want to work with us and try and define exactly what we want to do going forward, I'd be very, very up for that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna head on out here and click this thing off. Thanks for having me on, and we'll talk again.
You're
Okay.
most welcome, Joe. Have a good day, man. All right.
Okay. You take care.
All right, bud. Yeah, so that was nice. Always nice to have Joe on. He's a solid dude, and he's just a really, really, really good guy, and he's central to where it's at as far as I'm concerned. And I'm really, really happy that you know we've uh, we've got a central place here where we can finally get our thoughts out and sort them out. And I mean, if you go over to Joe's channel and you have a look at all the podcasts throughout the years, although I think he's removed most of them, or he's made most of them unlisted or private, because he wants to change where his channel is going, and that's a very healthy thing to do as part of your MGTOW evolution, and I think that's a very good thing to do. But if you had a look at his channel, you'll see his videos over the last like 2 to 3 years, where there's been thousands of hours of material going, where we're talking to certain guys, and all these guys have come and gone in the community. Their YouTube channels are shut down, they've gone off, they're now living different lives and in different countries, doing different things and wherever. But you could see that at the time is there was real mental work. There was Oh yeah, there we are. It's I'm having a lot of multiple connection problems today, unfortunately, but it's just one of those things where I got a lot of tabs open on this computer, so I need to go and sort that out. But yeah, thanks, Jeff. I got that one, bud. It just keeps happening. Like I said, I got a lot of tabs open and stuff. And next time I run this podcast, I gotta stop all the bloody tabs on my computer. That's given me now additional motivation to go and get those tabs off and kind of make this thing a better place. Or sorry, make the audio quality a bit better. So yeah, I'll do some basic shouts here. Jeff, how the hell are you? Heidi, what's up, buddy? Whiskey, always a fucking proper member out here, man. Yeah, Mike's good. We're happy out. That's good to hear, man. So it's like I say, just a lot of, if you go through Trav's older channel, or not older channel, but if you go through Trav's channel, like I said, he made a lot of his videos that were unlisted, and because he wanted to take a slightly different direction in relation to where he was going with it. And but if you were to look through all those conversations that were had, I remember back in June of last year, um, I was over in Holland. I was going for a job interview, and I was having a lot of things in my life, and trying to make changes and stuff like that. I got out of college and I trying to get land my first proper gig and stuff like that. And I came back to the hotel room. I actually went to the interview in the morning, right? And they were still talking from the previous night before. I got about 4 hours sleep, so I was up most of the night. It was with Howard Dare and SFM and MGTOW Music and all the people. There's about 8 or 9 of us in the hangout, and I think it might be still on there. I don't know. Check out Travis' channel. It might still be there. I don't know, but he made a lot of his videos unlisted because he wanted to, and I respect that. And but you could just see the people working on their ideas from the base level of where it's at. They were really trying to make it so where they were just really grinding out the difficulties that they were having and just really talking from a grassroots level. It was really good. It was just great listening, great material, and you hear stories from the guys that you never thought they had. You never thought they'd experienced those sort of things. It was really good, and I miss those conversations. I miss those guys coming around because, like I said, they've all moved on now since, and they're now living their own lives, and they've changed their tune, and I get that. It's a natural evolution within people, but um, yeah, man, it's just one of those things. And 2018 now, it'll be a good year. It'll be an interesting year, and I'm looking forward to the next step that the MGTOW applied. I'm looking forward to. Yeah, dropped out again there. Okay, well, I was gonna just wrap it up anyway, to be honest with you. So I hope you all don't mind. I'm gonna go now, and I'm gonna have myself my day. It's about 10:30 at night here, so I need to be honest. If I had a brain in my head, I'd go to bed. So I might just do that. My eyes are kind of drooping. So listen, like I say, I wish you all the best, guys, and take it easy. Have a good day. Like I say, day or night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whether you're out, raking, like cutting the hedges, or you're about to go and drive a mile and see your cousin, or whatever it is you're at. I wish you all the best, and like I say, within a week I'll be streaming again, and I'll schedule the event so people can see it and more people can show up and that sort of thing. So I wish you all the best, guys. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye bye.